Today, we're talking about the most recent injury update around Coby White. We're also going to be talking about Coby White's impact once he does get back to the Chicago Bulls. And lastly, we're going to be talking about some things to watch for in this upcoming game against the Milwaukee Bucks. And so before we go ahead and we jump into it, I first want to remind you to slam dunk on that subscribe button, just like Modest Buzelis slam dunks in games. And so in exchange for slamming on that subscribe button, I'm going to give you nothing but daily content around the Chicago Bulls. And so make sure that you hit that like, you hit that subscribe, and you join the Chicago Bulls Insider family as we talk nothing but Chicago Bulls basketball. And so with that being said, let's go ahead and let's jump into it. And let's start with the latest here around Coby White. And so got a chance to see this tweet from Joe Lorenzi of The Athletic. And so within this tweet, you also can see a video of Coby White at his presser. And so it's 1:32 seconds. And he is talking about just where he's at with the calf. And so within this tweet, you are seeing some of the main points from what Coby White had to say. And so I think that it was a very good update, and really starting with the bottom of the tweet where it says that he's been involved in 2-on-2 and 3-on-3 work. And so Coby White does say that it is a mix of player development and players that have been in these 2-on-2 and 3-on-3s. And so I think that that is a great sign. He does say, as far as involving the players right now, it is a challenge with the practices and the games. And so obviously there, but he does say that, essentially it's just about getting it in when you can. And so good thing that he's out there doing 2-on-2 and 3-on-3 work. The next, he doesn't give you a target date, as you can see, but he said that they're looking to eye the West Coast trip that starts in Utah on 11/16. And so I think that that is a date to watch with Coby White possibly getting back out to the Chicago Bulls. And then at the top, where he is talking about really what he's doing as far as the nonstop running and conditioning, really trying to get that calf back together, build up that resistance. And he does talk a little bit about the first evaluation and really what happened. And he said, like, the last time he was out, maybe practiced a bit too long. And then, he felt the tightness and everything else. And so just a minor setback. But right now, he feels very good and there's no setback. And so that is great news to hear around Coby White, is that he's feeling great, no setback, and he doesn't give us a date. But we do see a date in a possibility here for Coby White returning. And so next, I wanted to go ahead and jump into the impact around Coby White, because I think that Coby White is going to be huge for the Chicago Bulls. There's some people maybe that thinks that the chemistry is going to be off, but I think that Coby White just adds a ton of juice to this team. And so just talking about the impact for Coby White, like, there are a couple points why I think that he's going to give this team a big boost. And so the first one being, I think that he adds another dimension to the offense, because when you're talking about Coby White and his ability to handle the basketball and really get downhill, he is going to put pressure on the rim. And so we know, what this offense looks like when you can get pressure on the rim. And so, with Josh Giddey, Ayo Dosunmu, like they've shown it, Trey Jones. And so you can imagine what is going to happen when you get Coby White out there and he's putting pressure on the rim. And he also, has a variety of ways in which he can score. And so I think that that instantly is going to open it up really for the rest of the team, because what's happening there is with the movement that we've been seeing with this team early, and what I'm thinking is going to continue with this team. Like, now you're talking about the team really, or an opposing team, trying to take Coby White away. And I think he's always been a willing passer. And so he's going to open it up just by getting pressure on the rim. And then next, to go along with that point, Coby White is a bucket getter, and he's a guy that I think that you can rely on in the clutch. And so I think that that also is going to give the Chicago Bulls a big boost and another dimension to their team, because now if the offense does bog down, you can trust that Coby White is going to get you a bucket. He's either going to get to the free throw line or he's going to make it easy for somebody else, especially once he gets things cooking. And so, that is another thing here, is the guy that can get you a bucket in the clutch. And I know the Bulls aren't necessarily relying on one player, but still, this is some of the things that make Coby White special, is his ability to go out there and get you a bucket. And so that's going to be huge. And then next, when it comes down to just the chemistry, I just go back to what we saw at the end of the season with Josh Giddey and Coby White. And so I think that you're seeing that first or Josh Giddey is picked up right where he left off. And actually, he's taken a step further from last season. I think that Coby White is set to do the same thing because Coby White is stepping back into a role that he played last season. And so that's one thing. He's not shifting roles. And so I think that you're going to see that that's going to be a natural fit. Number two, these guys were great down the stretch in that 15-5 run that the Bulls had. And I think that you're going to see Coby White now, he's going to be more comfortable in this offensive system. And also, too, he understands what he needs to do as a main scorer. I think that he got a chance to really adjust last season because defenses knew he was coming and he was still able to really impact the games and stuff like that. And so I could see that this thing is going to take another jump here for this team as far as this backcourt is concerned. And so I think that he's going to fit right in as far as the chemistry is concerned. And then next, something that really can't be measured with stats, it's the leadership. And I think that you're seeing that with Josh Giddey. I think that he's certainly taken, more of a leadership role. Even going back to that Knicks game, you could see, on the bench, he's kind of, he has that energy of like, come on, let's get it together, stuff like that. And also too, you're seeing that as the team was kind of making their run. This is also what you see with Ayo Dosunmu. I think that Vooch, you see that with him. He's not necessarily the vocal leader out there. Vooch is the pro's pro, but Coby White as well. Like I've said that before with these guys, especially Ayo and Coby. I feel like that these guys have been leaders. You're seeing it now with Josh Giddey step up. And like I said, with Vooch, he has been, a leader for this team. He's just not as vocal, but still, you get that leadership back in your locker room and on the court. And so that is going to help you as well. And so this is why I just think that you're going to see a lot more positives with Coby White coming back than you are with the negatives. And so let's see what happens once he does get back. Again, there's really no timeline, but we should be looking for him possibly on that West Coast trip starting on 11/16. And so next, I wanted to go ahead and talk about some of the things to watch for in this upcoming game here against the Milwaukee Bucks. And so, I think that the first thing that I'm looking forward to seeing in this upcoming game against the Milwaukee Bucks is going to be how are the Chicago Bulls going to respond? I think that is what I want to see with this team because, after coming back, from 24 down, I think that this team needs to get off to a great start. They cannot afford to give up 75 points in the first half. That just cannot happen. And I think that the team would tell you that that's just not what they want to do. That's not what they want with their identity and everything else. But the challenge of the NBA is that, once you use that energy up and stuff like that, you have to, put it together either on a back-to-back or, everybody's talking about you and they know that you're coming. And so that you're going to get, the team's best punch that you're going against. And so, look, everybody's talking about this comeback. And we've talked about this really throughout just the preseason that this team traditionally, it just wasn't getting off the good starts. Now, I do think that we've seen some good starts this season, but I think particularly in this game, I want to see this team come out and really bring the fight to the Milwaukee Bucks. And so that's the first thing that I want to see. And then next, who are we going to see on the court? So, the question is around Ayo Dosunmu because Ayo Dosunmu at the time of this current podcast recording, he's questionable. And so I would like to see Ayo out there. I think that Ayo certainly gives this team, more juice and just more dimensions on offense and defense. And I think really with the way that this team came back from that last game and the possibility that you are going to really, kind of face a tough start to this game with Milwaukee coming out with a ton of energy, who can help you kind of offset that? It would be Ayo Dosunmu. I think he would bring a ton of energy off the bench. He's going to be fresh. I don't think he's going to be limited after a couple days because Ayo Dosunmu is the kind of guy that gets out there and he's ready to rock once he is available. And so, Ayo Dosunmu, and if he's available, I think that could be key to this matchup. And so I think that that's another thing to watch for. And then next, I think another thing with this team is going to be really the defensive discipline. I want to see that more. I think that this is the next step for this team is defensively, they've got to figure out a way to be disciplined some more. I love what they're doing in the second halves and stuff like that, but can they bring that to the first half? Because, starting with a guy like Trey Jones, he's been excellent as far as getting steals and things like that. I love his activity and things like that. And we saw it, in just spurts with this team defensively when they put it together. And so, just kind of going back to something from this last game against the Philadelphia 76ers. And I talked about this play too, because I thought it was excellent defense here from Josh Giddey, but it was also great defense really from, the rest of the team here. And so just taking a look at this, you can see that here's Josh Giddey at the top, but just look at the fact that the team is really on a string there together, and then they make the stop there. And so again, you see it just great communication. And then right there, you see the wall here between Isaac Okoro. You see where Trey Jones is right there in a great spot. And he's perfect for either helping or getting back to VJ here. You see that Vooch is kind of sink right there at the bottom of the lane, kind of waiting for the drive as well. And you can just see, again, this team communicating, getting back to their man. The rotations are there. This is exactly what this team is going to have to do, I think, just more consistently here, as they're showing you that they can definitely do so. And so that's another thing that I'm looking forward to seeing with this team, just that defensive discipline. Can they continue to build upon that? Because I do think that the physicality is certainly going to be there in this game, especially when you're talking about Giannis and him getting downhill. He's certainly going to bring some physicality. He's going to try to kind of intimidate the team too with the block shots and stuff like that. And also too, Bobby Portis. I think that Bobby Portis is very much a player that he's going to try to bring some physicality. You have a guy like Miles Turner as well. These are players that are going to try to test the Bulls, and they do have a little bit of an inside out game. And it's going to be interesting. One of the key stats that I got a chance to see here with the Milwaukee Bucks is that they're tied with the Bulls as far as offensive ratings at 117.2, and they're 10th in scoring at 119.9 points per game, and they're shooting 39.5% from downtown. And so let's see what happens with that. They're shooting about 50.7% overall from the floor, but defensively, the Bucks can be had. And I think that this is where the Bulls can possibly wear them down, because they're coming in. They've got the 20th rating here as far as defensively at the 116.4. They're 21st in points allowed at 119.1. And so, look, this team can be had defensively. I know that the Chicago Bulls are going to look to attack them early and often, but man, can they really close down the Bucks and really take away the things that they want to do offensively? And so those are some things to watch for. You guys let me know in the comments here what you guys are thinking as far as Coby White and his possible return. And just really, do you feel like that this would be a big boost for the Chicago Bulls? I definitely think so. I don't think that the chemistry is going to be thrown off, and I cannot wait to see this. And once again, you guys can check out the tweet there if you want to. It is a video that goes with it. And so just giving you some good updates here around Coby White. And so next, just talking about some of the keys to the game. Like I said here, for the Chicago Bulls, they're going to have to match that physicality defensively out there. And I think that they're going to have their chances offensively with the Milwaukee Bucks. And then, they're going to need to get off to a great start, especially after what you did against the Philadelphia 76ers. And so it's going to be, another challenge for this team, not just physically, but mentally. This is what you have to do. You have to be able to answer night after night and just really put the game behind you that you had. And so we're going to find out a little bit more about this team's focus level, which I have raved about, is their focus has been there. And so anyway, you guys let me know in the comments here what you guys are thinking. And as we always say, look, go Bulls, and I will see you guys on the next one. All right, peace.